What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live, presented by Sleeper. Here we are, Monday, September 22nd, 2025, the final Monday until the start of training camp. As Media Day is a week from today, so we have a couple final streams before we get things rolling with the 2025-2026 NBA season. Today we're going to talk about a Rip City reunion. Dame hosts his reunion with the Blazers with some special guests at Pioneer Courthouse Square. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Jrue Holiday, the Blazers' newest veteran. He had some high remarks for Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. We're going to dive into that article. Probably we'll have some time to take some questions, and that's going to be today's stream. Eric, what's going on, man? How was your weekend?
What's up? My weekend was good. Just double tweeted out our thing, so I'm deleting it real quick.
Yeah, I this is the first I've talked to Eric. Didn't talk to him before the show. Just immediately went live because he was off somewhere, so went live, tweeted, and we're here, man. We're here. Happy to be here, man. So what were you up to this weekend, Eric? What did you get yourself into? What trouble did you get into?
Let's see. Well, right now, son has soccer on Saturday, daughter has soccer on Sunday, so that takes up most of the weekend. And then my son went to a slumber party on Saturday night. The family has a daughter that's my daughter's age, so I took my daughter and their daughter, and we went to the mall and to Topgolf. So that was pretty fun.
Shout out to Topgolf, man. That sounds fun.
How about you, Tori? How about chat?
First off, huge shout out to my Seattle Mariners, man. Huge shout out to my Seattle Mariners. Shout out to all my Mariners fans out there. So, it was a great weekend. Niners won, but Mariners sweep the Houston Trastros and are basically all but locked into a first-round bye, which is just absolutely crazy to me because I've never seen that team have any sort of success ever, and it looks like they'll have home field advantage in the ALDS. 5-game series to go to the ALCS. So I'm on cloud nine with them right now. It's really fun, that dive and catch that they had to seal that second game and win the series and win the tiebreaker and go up 2 games on the Houston Astros. That play was like Damian Lillard series-winning buzzer beater-esque, just with all the the storylines from Houston always owning that team, man. Houston always owning us, and the Mariners always faltering down the stretch. It just felt like overcoming it in one dive and catch. So baseball is beautiful, man. I've become a diehard baseball fan this summer. So yeah, just really excited all around. My Niners are 3-0. Blazers starting things up here in a week. It's a great sports time for me. And then I also got a new kitten. So we're in the process of trying to get our older cat to not hate the new kitten right now. So if you hear any meowing in the background, that's the new kitten.
So you got a new kitten, or your girlfriend got a new kitten?
Well, so the cat we already had was like my girlfriend's cat. So it's kind of like our cat, but it's my cat. You know what I mean? I've always orange boy cats are always super friendly, super friendly. So we got an orange boy cat. She said her mom's friend had some cats randomly show up that were dumped at a park in the St. John's area of Portland, like just dumped at a park, and they showed up to their house. So we got a free orange kitten, super friendly, super rambunctious. Yeah, it's fun. Just the older cat will hiss through the door at it, so we have to keep him sequestered. No. Yeah, so we're working through that. But yeah, maybe when he's ready, he'll make a stream appearance as my cat. So our cat. I don't know.
Nothing will ever beat the time your cat went live in the middle of the night.
I know.
Shout out if you watched that.
Yeah, so we were trying to name it. We were coming home while the Mariners were playing yesterday, and Cal Raleigh was up to bat. I said, if he homers here, we'll name him the cat Cal. And he didn't, but then he homered the next at bat. Didn't name it Cal, though. Named it Leo. Leo was the name we went with, so yeah. It's It's fun. It's just a lot of work to like introduce cats to each other. It's a whole thing. It's not like dogs where they'll normally just hit it off and not be a problem. So, but yeah, I know. Did any of you in chat go to the Pioneer Courthouse Square Rip City reunion with Damian Lillard? Let me know how that was. If you did indeed go, I did not. But we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about Jrue Holiday. We're going to take your questions to like preview the season, maybe dive in on a couple of players. Anyway, what's going on, chat? Show the tabby cat. It's I think sleeping right now, and I don't want to wake it up. It'll be very loud. Oscar says it was beautiful. Oscar showed up. Oscar, yeah. Let me know how the experience was. So they brought out Scoot, Kamara, Young Hansen. Who am I forgetting? There's a couple other Blazers. I thought I read Robert Williams III. So it wasn't just Dame. They brought out some other Blazer players. Dame spoke a little bit, and it just looked like a good way to welcome him back. Packed Pioneer Courthouse Square was a cool little thing for the Blazers to do. City Sissoko, Caleb Love, that's right. The two-way guys there. Thank you, David. Yeah, so Dame has his reunion. He speaks a little bit. I'll try and pull up some quotes here, but yeah, if you went, let me know how it was in the live chat. And yeah, Eric, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on his reunion or any of the comments that he had?
My main takeaway from, I mean, this goes back to, I guess, his reintroductory press conference, but it really feels like he's not going anywhere the rest of his career. You know how we kind of talked about the potential of maybe if he wants to go somewhere else, moving him when we signed him or whatever. But I definitely 100% feel like he's going to be a Blazer the rest of his career.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I thought, if it was something where he came back on a minimum just to rehab and it was a 1-year deal, then maybe he would want to go ring chasing at the end of the year. But with him signing for 3 years, $14 million a year, he's getting a huge bag when you combine that with the payments that the Milwaukee Bucks are giving him. It was clear that, yeah, this is a long-term thing that he's going to finish his career here, which is awesome. Or at least, you never say never, but the expectation is he will absolutely finish his career here.
I guess the Blazers could not want him.
Yeah. I mean, new owner, new GM. Never say never, but expect him to retire. Blazer, he had some comments. He said, "I'm excited to be back here. The love never changed, and it's going to continue to grow. My coming back to this organization was unexpected, but knowing that I'm a part of this team in the city again, it's a special feeling." And he also talked about how when he returned to Moda Center after being traded to the Bucks in 2024, he said he had no idea where the visitor locker room was, which I thought was pretty wild. And he had a quote that said, "Usually I can put my emotions aside, lock in, and do what I got to do. It was one of the first times that I felt like I wasn't able to engage like I always do. I was forced to face that amount of love and ovation and how it just kept going on and on." Of course, talking about the ovation when he returned to Portland, returned to Moda Center. Of course, I was at that game. I've been to the 2 Dame return games. This year, it's crazy because this year is going to be the first full NBA season where I don't see Damian Lillard play in person of his career since 2012, since I was 16 years old, and it's literally just because he's out. So I have seen him shooting around though, which is cool. So I hope his rehab's going well. I think like the more interesting thing that he had to say recently wasn't at this reunion though, Eric.
Well, real quick, one of the things he said at the reunion was that he's mentioned several times how good he thinks the team is and how good of a team he's coming back to. So I think he's pretty excited, or he seems to feel like this team is heading in the right direction as well.
We love high expectations, man. And when you bring in a guy like him, when you bring in a guy like Jrue, it raises expectations. We're going to talk about that in a little bit with Jrue. But it's going to be different this year. It's going to be different this year with the expectations coming in, with the veterans that we have here, with Chauncey finally having his guys, for lack of a better term. Chauncey, the new ownership, we'll see how much of a corner they turn. Of course, they started to turn one last year, but I just don't have. I have no clue what to expect out of this season, which is pretty cool. It's something where I could see them struggling. I could see them getting a 7 seed, 8 seed if things go their way, and their defense is a top 5 defense, which I think it has the potential to be. We'll see how the offense looks, but it's really fun going into a season not just purely expecting them to lose and not knowing what to expect. And I think that's going to be kind of a theme of Media Day here in a week, is players talking about having higher expectations than they did in years past, how, talking about making the playoffs, setting some of these expectations. I expect that to be a theme with the questions that are asked as well as the responses, and I think from the jump they're setting that tone that they want to be a playoff team. They want to be a top 8 seed. If they have to play their way in, so be it, but they fully expect to be playing extra basketball after the 82nd regular season game. So Chauncey, of course, had that comment after game 82 last season, talking about how he doesn't want to have this feeling again, doesn't want this to be the last game of the season again. So we have to wait and see, but it's going to be fun going into the season with those expectations, with just not knowing if they're going to be done after 82 games like we did in the past couple of years, where we knew they were going to be done after 60 games.
Yeah. And then one thing quick from chat. So Brody J was asking about this, and just in case there's people that just found us this offseason, stuff like that. So once the season starts, including preseason, we have a post-game show after every game, all 82, and like you just mentioned, hopefully more than that this year.
Yeah. Well, preseason games too, so it's at least 86.
Win or loss, we're here after every game. Occasionally one of us miss it, but the other one is always here. But yeah, we'll be here, and then we still have our twice weekly shows. They get moved to Mondays and Thursday afternoons instead of evenings, because we like to pick those games for that day. And then we'll probably be doing some stuff with Sleeper on those, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And then so we have those, and then there's videos and stuff that will get posted as well. So we stream a lot. And then we stream for like the trade deadline, and of course any big signings or trades that happen for the Blazers, we go live as well. So yeah, plenty of content. It's basically like 4 or 5 days a week we stream all throughout the season. Yep.
If you're new to the channel, I cannot understate how much fun, win or loss, the regular season is. The post-game shows are. It's the most fun I have making content is the post-game shows, the post-game live streams, breaking down the game right after, getting your guys' thoughts in the chat, doing the event nights like we did this past season. It's kind of the thing for our channel. So September, we just like talking to you guys, like to make content, but it does get a little bit difficult this time of year. We appreciate you guys tuning in this time of year. Once the regular season gets going, it's wheels up, and it's a lot of fun. So hopefully you're able to tune in for some of these post-game shows we got coming up. But yeah, so Dame had an interesting comment. I want to know if you guys believe this or not. So he had a License to Lillard episode, which he hadn't dropped one of those in like a decade. It was something young in his career that he would do on his YouTube channel. He just hit 400K subs, So we'll be there very shortly. Maybe give us a month or two. We'll be at 400K, right? But shout out to him. for dropping a license to Lillard. It's a documentary style series that he picked back up, dropped a video recently talking about the first couple years of his career leading up to LaMarcus Aldridge leaving. And he talked about how he and LaMarcus Aldridge, there was a miscommunication that led to him leaving. And we've talked about this in the past, but basically LaMarcus was hearing from people that, was hearing that it's Dame's team now and not his team, so he wanted to move on. Meanwhile, Dame never heard any of this and didn't think about it in this way at all. He was just trying to be the best compliment to LaMarcus, and Dame called him up after he heard that LaMarcus was feeling this way, and LaMarcus told him he was moving on. This was, of course, in free agency in 2014. Yeah, 2014 NBA free agency. No, 2015. Yeah, I'm thinking 2 playoff seasons plus the year he didn't make it. So, yeah, 2015 NBA free agency was when LaMarcus moved on. And I thought it was very interesting to hear Dame talk about it, but it already confirmed stuff that most people know. There is always stories that you could get from people that work within the organization. We had the privilege to do some meet and greets with certain people over the past decade, where we heard some stories about what went on with LaMarcus and Dame, and Dame's comments are right in line with LaMarcus essentially feeling like, oh, this is Dame's team now, it's not my team anymore, it's time for me to move on, and Dame not feeling like that. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on those comments. Have you seen the episode that I'm talking about, Eric?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad to see that back.
Yeah.
He's saying he wants to drop YouTube content all the time.
Let's go. He's a YouTuber now.
Someone should, I don't want to be that guy, but someone should ask him if he'd come on our show. Since he wants to be a YouTuber. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, once again, I feel like Dame's trying to take the high road or whatever, but I still feel like this all comes down to LaMarcus is just too wishy-washy of a dude, and I know he kind of regrets leaving because his career was never really the same after he left here either. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like LaMarcus was just going to decide whatever his last thought was on that season or whatever. It felt like there was a lot of twists and turns, and it included him saying a lot of stuff about how he wanted to be the best Blazer ever and all that kind of stuff, and then just left. And we don't know how much Olshey really wanted him back and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, all that kind of, it's been 10 years now, so what are you gonna do? But I mean, that team could have been really good, especially with CJ emerging that next season. I don't know if they would have won a championship. I mean, they would have still had to make some moves, I think.
Yeah. So I understand why Dame thinks that they just needed time to gel and gain more experience, and they might have been a championship caliber team. I mean, they looked close to that before Wesley Matthews went down with his Achilles injury, but I know it's a big what if for Blazer fans. What if Wesley Matthews never got hurt? They just made the trade for Aaron Aflalo with him coming off the bench. Could that team have actually made a run? But I don't think they were constructed to truly make a run. I think defensively they were going to get exposed regardless. Of course, not having Wesley Matthews hurt, but it was kind of the first time, that playoff series was the first time I really started questioning Terry's thoughts. And it was just the way they guarded Beno Udrih in the freaking playoffs, man. The way they just let him get to the one spot that guy ever wanted to get to, which was a little 10 to 15 foot mid-range pull-up. And they let him get to that spot, and then has he get to the rim? This is a guy that's like a bench point guard that they let pick them apart for stretches in that series. And, Memphis was a good team, so give them credit, but there's just certain things in that series that I think would have been issues regardless of if they were healthy or not. And I think the defensive side of the court was always going to be a bit of a problem for them in the playoffs against the elite teams. They really struggled to defend elite teams. So I don't think that would have necessarily fixed itself if LaMarcus stayed and Batum stayed and Wes Matthews stayed. Maybe that's the experience that Dame's talking about, but when we're talking about being the best team in the league, oftentimes you got to be very, very good on both sides of the floor, and I just don't know if the defense would have been all there. But it's fun to dream about, fun to count championships that we should have won but didn't win because, we didn't draft Jordan, and then Odin and LaMarcus got hurt, and then LaMarcus left. So, in another universe, we have 10 champions. Odin and Roy, yeah. Odin and Roy. In another universe, we have 10 championships right now. So that's a fun universe. In that universe, I'm a completely different person because I know what a championship feels like. So.
Yeah, it is a cool what if, but I don't know. I think you mentioned the West injury, him going down. Like, he was never really the same player after that either. So, it's a case of so that team, what do we do with Batum? Would we have paid him a max contract, or would we have still traded him? And so what does that team look like around Aldridge and Dame? And then you throw in CJ, I guess. I guess they might have tried to keep a few of those guys, but I don't know. It felt like that team, once West got hurt, had reached its peak because it was never going to be quite the same after that.
Yep. What's going on, Matt Hood? What's going on, Colonel Pancakes? What's going on? Mute that bozo. Shout out to you guys in chat. I'm reading some of the comments, even if I'm not answering.
Did you read? And
a shout out to Elias with the $5 GG sticker because he beat me in fantasy today. Thank you. That's a bittersweet donation because I appreciate the donation, but I don't appreciate you beating me in fantasy. And the only reason he beat me in fantasy was because I traded Kenneth Walker for Chuba Hubbard week 1. And that was the difference between him beating me and losing against me. So I should have trusted my draft fully. I was just scared about a Kenneth Walker Charbonnet committee. And then Charbonnet was out. So, what can I do? But I don't know. I'm still very happy with my team. So Judkins is on the come up. And yeah, I like my team, so I'm not tripping. We're good. Good game to you as well.
I was pretty down on my team after week 2. I felt like I had one of the worst teams in the league, and then I made one trade, and now I feel like I can contend. I feel like much better about my team.
Yeah, I need to find a way to take advantage of somebody too. That's all trades are, right? In fantasy football, you're either getting fleeced like I did, apparently, or you're fleecing someone else. I don't make the rules, but it was a good picking. I know you said you almost took Ashton Genty at 5 and you took McCaffrey instead. That's looking pretty good so far.
Yeah.
That's looking pretty good so far. So, yeah, Genty hasn't really been that, but we'll talk about football when we get to the sleeper segment later. I did win a parlay finally, so
nice.
That's awesome. It's about time. And shout out Hyperprime member for 46 months says, I just got to say it feels so effing good to have Dame. Yes, it does. Thank you, Hyperprime. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's he's really like the only guy that I have to listen to with off-season comments. Like, it's always cool to hear what Scoot has to say, Sharp has to say, other players have to say, but with Dame, with how honest he is and him being Damian Lillard, it's always intriguing to hear him talk about the team and the city and that sort of stuff. So I really enjoyed listening to him talk yesterday. And then, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, So like Mount Hood said earlier too, we had the combo a few times during the season. Man, if we had Dame with his current roster, now look at us, going to be interesting. So cool how it worked out. That's the only bummer though, is like we're not going to see it for a full year. So like these streams a year from now, we're most likely going to be talking about, oh yes, we got Dame out of the mix. It'll be fun talking about that, but it just sucks that that's probably a year away from happening. That's the only down thing about this. But I also recognize the situation wouldn't be what it is with him returning so soon had he not gotten hurt anyway. So it's both a good thing and a bad thing that he got hurt, for the Blazers, I guess, getting it back. But unfortunately, I keep like getting hyped up every time I hear him talk, like you said, and then but then I have to tell myself, wait, I don't get to watch him for a year, so
Yeah.
just that's the only thing that's putting like a slight damper on anything Dame related.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. I'm ready to see Scoot hopefully take the reins here sharp. Like, I'm happy those guys are going to get, hopefully, the minutes that they deserve. I expect them to.
Yeah.
Even if one's coming off the bench, I expect both of them to play at least 30 minutes a game. And if they don't, and if you're new to the channel, this is why you show up for the post-game show, where we rant about Scoot playing 23 minutes when he has 18 points and 7 assists on 60% from the field. Yeah. I will rant about that heavily.
So Tyler J says, I think it's a good thing we get to see a year of what we have with Scoot and Sharp without Dame getting in the way. Yes, there are definitely some silver linings like that, but I think if we're talking about going into the season with a healthy Dame, now, like I just said, we wouldn't have him back if he was healthy because the Bucks wouldn't have waived him.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about the season coming up. Yes, I do agree that it's going to be cool, and if this team can, meet or exceed expectations without Dame, and then we're talking about adding him to the mix next year, plus we still can make other moves and we have draft picks and stuff potentially. Those things are all exciting, but if we had Dame right now with this team, I feel like we're talking about them as probably a top 6 team, like in the playoffs, right? And not fighting for a play-in spot.
Yeah, it's always hard to even go top 6 with it because the West is so freaking loaded. I think you're going to see a really... Oh, Eric got collab cam. I think you're going to see a really, really good team that's the 7th seed and having to play in the play-in this year. Now, we'll have to wait and see what happens with Kawhi. Because if Kawhi... I don't expect there to be a resolution soon enough, but if Kawhi's contract gets voided, then I think the Blazers might be better than the Clippers. They really have no way of replacing him. And that could be... Yeah, that could be a team, especially with how old the rest of their roster is, that could be a team that Portland could jump. It's just going to be, it's going to be tough. Like, even if they had Dame, depends on what version of Dame you're getting, which we have to wait and see. Hopefully it's close to his peak self, but lots to learn this season, lots to learn from this team.
It's weird because I feel like the Clippers had a pretty good underrated offseason, and the Kawhi thing's gonna probably loom pretty large, but
yep.
I feel like if they do somehow keep the team together and don't face any punishment this year, they could be really good.
Yeah. Like I said, I do not know what to expect. So yeah, they could be a 6 seed, they could be a 13 seed. I don't know. It's going to be really tough for me to make predictions because I am always the guy that loves to make predictions, loves to have something to say, loves to have an opinion. I don't freaking know what this team is going to do this year, man. So I think like the most confident thing for me is just Tamani's going to lock things down defensively. Klingen's going to lock things down defensively. Jrue Holiday's going to lock things down defensively. This team's going to be a above average defensive team. The thing is, they should be a great defensive team. So above average is underachieving and probably not good enough. But that's the most confident thing for me this season with this team. Offensively, I have no idea what to expect. Will they be able to actually play in transition? I have no idea.
And we'll definitely we'll have a prediction show, and we'll get in more about how we feel the predictions are going to go as it gets closer to the season.
Yep. Let's segue that into talking about Jrue Holiday. So, where's the Jrue Holiday article I had? I had a Jrue Holiday article. So, Jrue Holiday spoke recently about Shaedon Sharpe, about Scoot Henderson. He had some high praise for them. I'm pulling up the article right now. And it was funny because he's talking about how he's excited to be joining the Portland Trail Blazers, which right after the trade we heard that he was supposedly pissed off about being traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. But Holiday had these comments recently. He said, the goal is to win and make some noise. I think that after the last few years of what has happened after Damian Lillard being traded and then now that Dame's back, I think it's an exciting time here in Portland. It's an exciting time to be a Trailblazer, and I'm excited to be part of it. He also said this about Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe. He said, I don't think y'all understand, like, Scoot and Shaedon are so athletic and so smart the way they play the game. They're going to be so good, and I feel like all they need is time. I feel like the time is now because they have all the tools. I'm super excited to play with them. And, of course, this is coming from a veteran who is probably going to have a starting spot over one of those two guys. But to hear him say, you know, they're athletic, it's like, okay, yeah, everybody knows they're athletic, but to say they're so smart with the way they play the game, I thought was an interesting quote to hear from a veteran who's won 2 NBA Finals. Saying that about Scoot, saying that about Shaedon. Now, Jrue Holiday has worked out this offseason with Scoot Henderson, with Chris Johnson. It's been on YouTube. But, you know, to hear that about Shaedon as well, I thought was an interesting comment from Jrue.
Love to hear it, right? Now, famously on this show, you've been one to downplay any kind of comments like that in the off season, but I mean, when a guy like Jrue says it, someone that's well respected, I'm excited about that.
Yep. He also talked about Chauncey. He said, I'm old enough to have watched him play. He was one of the guys who I wouldn't necessarily say I mirrored my game after, but I felt like I played similar to how he played. He was very smart. He was obviously more than solid on one side of the ball. The way that he thinks the game, I feel like I think the game the same way. How he controlled the game just from his personality, and you can see as a coach, he's kind of brought that over from as a player to a coach and instilled it. So has some high praise for Chauncey, and it'll be interesting to see how much Holiday is just an extension of Chauncey's coaching on the court. I think, you know, everybody talks about Jrue Holiday, bringing him in for the defensive side of the ball. He's a big defensive upgrade over Anthony Simons. That's why the defense should be even better. On the flip side, Jrue Holiday is not as talented of an offensive player as Anthony Simons is, so there's worry about an offense that was already bad being worse. I do wonder how much value Holiday is going to bring as just being a steady, under control veteran point guard that makes the right play, you know, can play in the flow, and just has like he's a cerebral player, for lack of a better term. He, I think, is going to come in and be able to like help this offense calm down. I assume he's going to be the starting point guard. I think it'll either be Shaedon Sharpe or Jeremy Grant starting next to him. I think there's a chance that it's Scoot. In that scenario, he'd play more off the ball, but I think on the ball, he's not going to be somebody that's going to wow you. He's not going to be like 20 points per game. He's not going to be somebody that's regularly getting 8, 9, 10 assists if he's the starting point guard for this team. But I think he'll do a good job just in terms of slowing things down when they need to be slowed down, running the offense, making the right play, not making many mistakes in picking his spots while also setting up his teammates and just being solid on that side of the ball. And, it's not going to be super impressive statistically, but I do think that should not be undervalued.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's had good offensive moments, but he's never been the type that just completely carries a team or anything like that offensively. So the question is, do we have those guys? We know, or I'm pretty confident Denny's ready to be one of those guys that carries a team. He started showing that last season towards the second half, and then also in Eurobasket this summer. So I could pretty confidently say that he's one of those guys. So we just need one more person, I think, to step up and fill that role. The most likely candidate in my mind is Sharp, just because he has the skill set to easily score 20 plus points a game. So hopefully that just those two slide into that role. Scoot does a much better job of controlling the offense and ups his offensive output both in terms of assists and scoring. And then you get Jrue's steadiness that doesn't have to do too much on that end. And we're still effective on offense. I think that's probably the best case we can hope for.
Yeah, and I'll say this with Chauncey Billups wanting to improve the half court offense in terms of getting players moving more than just kind of zipping the ball around to players that are stationary, which is the most important comment from his exit interview. I've talked about this a ton. I talked about this a ton last year, and then he straight up admitted that it was something that needed to get better. I think having Jrue Holiday at point guard, he's the type of guy to direct players, right? To ball at the top of the arc, tell someone to screen away, to try and set up action that might not be part of a set. I feel like Anthony Simons was never really that type of point guard. If nobody was moving at the top of the arc, he trusted in his offensive talent, and he has a lot of offensive talent. These are just how these are different players, right? Where Ant would just go make something happen on his own or call for a screen, run some pick and roll. Whereas I feel like Holiday will be the type of guy, as they're trying to instill more principles within their offense, more movement within the half court, where he will, when the ball's in his hands, direct that a bit and play into that a bit in a way that maybe Anthony Simons would not have. And I know that sounds like a critique to Anthony Simons. It's really not. They're different players in that regard. I do think that is part of the argument for bringing in Jrue Holiday. If you're set on making some legitimate changes to your half-court offense and instilling more motion, instilling more principles, it's nice to have a 17-year veteran, really smart player on both sides of the ball that can come in and be an extension of Chauncey on the floor and direct some of this stuff and set some of these actions up. So I'm hopeful that with the new assistant coaching staff, with Jrue Holiday, with some of these players being a year older, with Chauncey sounding like he's dedicated to changing the half-court offense, that you're going to see growth there, where the Blazers, I don't think, will be necessarily more offensively talented than last year outside of some internal development from their young guys. But hopefully they'll run things better, and Jrue will play a part in that, and the offense will be greater than the sum of its parts, compared to in prior years at times it felt like it was less than the sum of its parts. So the offense has been pretty inexcusable for quite a while now. So that's some of my optimism with bringing in Jrue Holiday as well with the offense. I don't think he's an upgrade over Simons, and definitely not as an athlete, definitely not in terms of offensive talent, but being a 35-year-old, 17-year veteran does come with its perks, and I think those are some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just got to hope that with his age and stuff and the miles on his body, he's had a lot of injuries throughout his career. You just got to hope that he still has a little bit of mileage left on those treads. So hopefully, hopefully he's able to have a decent year and not showing too much decline as he gets up there in age.
Yeah, I think it will too, especially as somebody that's, not his game doesn't really rely upon athleticism. It's he's a smart scorer. He'll pick his spots. He's not going to force much. So, he scored almost 20 a game back in Milwaukee. In Boston, it was a lot lighter. I think the volume and stuff is going to go down, but I still think he'll be efficient enough and do a good enough job picking his spots, even if his body's declining, that he'll be a fine enough offensive player and help us in that regard. So hopefully the decline isn't sharper than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those were his comments. Chat, let me know if you have any questions, especially questions that can maybe preview the season. If you want to know our thoughts on a specific player, I would love to answer some questions like that. Eric, what do you got?
One more thing on the Jrue thing. So I saw a lot of talk today from Blazer fans and some Rocket fans. So Fred VanVleet, turns out, tore his ACL and is probably going to miss the season. So the Rockets, obviously they traded for Kevin Durant this offseason. They have very high expectations after being the second seed last year and then adding KD to that team. And so the talk was, would they possibly call Portland and make another run at Jrue Holiday? Or like, what are they going to do now at point guard? And just for the record, I looked at their cap page today just to make sure. They are in a spot where it is almost impossible for them to trade for Jrue Holiday until after December 15th. Because Fred VanVleet signed a new contract. He can't even be traded till then. So basically they'd have to trade out Şengün or KD to have enough salary, because VanVleet, Steven Adams, Dorian Finney-Smith all signed this offseason. So they're not even trade eligible till December 15th. Jabari Smith signed an extension, so he's on a poison pill. So that leaves like Reed Shepherd and Ben Thompson at like around $10 million each, which doesn't add up to enough. They really have no contracts to add up. A lot of their other players, like Tari Eason, is basically the only other player on their roster that they can trade right now. So, and they're obviously not going to trade him in. So, like, Reed Shepherd and Tari Eason is a pretty good trade package if you're trading for like a young team, but that's only like $15 million. So they're not really in a position, unless it's a cheap option, to go after like a player like Jrue Holiday, and probably can't even get someone like Anthony Simons even if they wanted call Boston for him or something. I don't see a way for them to get a high priced player right now.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation, because I do think Jrue Holiday would be the perfect fit to replace some of what Fred VanVleet does.
Absolutely.
Just being a guy that can play on or off the ball, a good defensive player, solid enough 3-point shooter. I think, at the deadline, I don't know exactly what a trade package looks like, but once they can trade some of the pieces you talked about, then maybe there is something at the deadline. If the Blazers season is not going particularly well and they want to get off Jrue Holiday, maybe that's a team that's willing to give up something of value, or maybe, Portland just wants to get off that contract at that point in time with the new owner coming in. I don't know. We'll have to see how the season goes. Like I said, I don't know what to expect, but that could be like the number one landing spot if they're having a good season but want to be great, which of course they do. They traded for KD. You got Amen Thompson. I expect another step out of him. And then Şengün. Like, that's a legitimate big three next year. I think that's 3 all-star caliber players. You can make the case that KD's still superstar level. Amen, people should not sleep on Amen next year. He might not be an all-star, but I think in terms of impact with what he can do defensively on top of his playmaking and his game-breaking athleticism, he'll have an all-star impact. You just need the right role players around those guys. They have some good 3-and-D guys, with like a Finney Smith, with Tari Eason is maybe not the most consistent three-point shooter, but he's good enough and a good defender. So you got some nice forwards there, but it's just like that lockdown guard defender with championship experience. I do think they'd value Jrue Holiday very much so. There is, they seem like a potential Robert Williams III's landing spot in previous years. Now they have Steven Adams, but we do know that Ime has a soft spot for, and they got Capella now. So that's out the window, but there have been those rumors. So, if Capella gets hurt and Steven Adams isn't getting it done, or, you never know what can happen. Maybe that's another player that they'd be interested in because Ime loves Robert Williams III. But I don't think Jrue Holiday gets traded this year. I think that the season goes just well enough that Portland wants to see it next year with Dame and Jrue Holiday and what that combo could look like and what that means for Scoot and Shea. I don't know. I don't know how you play those guys both more than 26 minutes a game if you also have Dame and Jrue there. And then you have Kamara starting at the 3. Lots of questions to be answered this season, which is what's going to make it a lot of fun.
Yeah, and for the record, Van Vliet and Reed Shepherd match, just hypothetically. And, I doubt they give us a ton of draft capital for Jrue, but, maybe the Blazers play hardball and don't want to trade him, but they're really desperate. And like you mentioned, Drew's a perfect fit. They do have a pick swap with Brooklyn in 2027 that's very valuable. They have Phoenix's first-round pick unprotected in 2027 as well. And they also have in 2029, which is a big year for us too, with us having the most and least favorable of our pick, Milwaukee and Boston's picks. They have the 2 most favorable between their pick, Dallas and Phoenix.
Yeah.
So,
I don't.
So they have a lot of draft capital. I'm just saying, I don't see us getting any of those top picks, but they do have draft capital still after trading for KD. And Reed Shepherd and Fred VanVleet. If the Blazers aren't necessarily having a good season, I think Reed might be the kind of third guard long term that they look for, but I don't know.
Yeah. I will say, if Jrue Holiday is killing it this season, but the Blazers are still willing to move off of him, maybe because Scoot and Sharp are as well. I don't think this is a realistic scenario, but just talking out loud, thinking out loud. Of course I'm talking out loud. I'm thinking out loud. That 2029 first, with them having the second best of the first and second best of Phoenix, Dallas in their own pick. With Portland having the best out of Milwaukee, Boston, Portland, if there's a way Portland could swap that pick for the best of Houston, Dallas, or Phoenix, if it's better, then you absolutely capitalize that, because at the end of the day, basically Portland gets the best out of those 6 teams in that year, which at that point you're probably guaranteed a top 10 pick if you're getting the best of Portland, Boston, Milwaukee, Houston, Dallas, and Phoenix.
Yeah.
So anyway, if there's a team with a potentially really good 2029 first, if I'm Portland, I would be trying to maximize the value out of that first round pick. If you can turn that into the best of 4 or 5 teams pick somehow, I think that's very valuable, because you're just maximizing the upside of that pick. And that could be a lifeline depending on if Portland is able to actually take the pieces they have and turn them into a contender. Sure, that's great. Then that's just a cherry on top. But if not, they're going to need a high upside asset at some point, regardless of how they use it, whether it's a trade or whether it's drafting somebody at the top of the draft. they need to hedge their bets a bit in terms of maximizing the value of the picks they have coming down the line. So that could look completely different depending on who you're trading with. That could manifest itself in a number of different ways, but 2029 is the year with Portland having the best of Boston, Milwaukee, Portland. If you can somehow make that an even better trade chip, an even better draft pick, then you definitely have to try and do it if you're Portland.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Chappell, says, I am listening out loud. Nice. We love it. I'm still in off-season mode, obviously. I have a week to lock in. I've been messing up sayings, which I'm prone to do. It's one of the weaknesses in my scouting profile, but, at least I'm getting dates right.
Yeah, you do know it's Monday, right?
Yeah, I said Monday in the intro.
Yeah, good job.
I said Monday, September 22nd. I knew my month. I knew my year. I know that it's a week until media day. Doing pretty well.
And then
on the back.
Underdog NBA on Twitter had they're doing like a little thing on each team, and they had the Blazers projected starting five to be Jrue Holiday, Shaedon Sharpe, Denny Avdia, Toumani Camara, and Donovan Clingan, which I think most people believe that's probably what they're going to lean towards. I do think some of that will play out with how players do in training camp, but if I had to guess right now, I'd believe that will be the starting lineup for game one.
Do you think there's a specific starting lineup that the Blazers organization is going to be rooting for, or maybe the coaching staff is going to be like going in like, we want this to be the starting lineup, and it's going to take a lot for them to change their mind? Because I do feel like they feel that way either about the starting lineup that you just said, or a starting lineup of Jrue, Toumani, Jeremy, Denny, Clingan. I feel like they're going into training camp with one of those two starting lineups already in their head.
I feel like our front court is set now with the three players that'll start. I don't believe Denny, Toumani, or Donovan will come off the bench. I don't think any of those. So the question is, do they start Grant and have one of those forwards play shooting guard? Yes, I could see that. I think I don't think they're going in with like a preconceived notion. I do think they are expecting Jrue Holiday to be the starting guard or one of the starting guards. And I think they're going into it hoping that Sharpe obviously distances himself from like any questions of whether he should come off the bench or be in the starting lineup. And I do think if Scoop plays really well, I don't think they're like, no, we're not starting him no matter what. But I don't know. I feel like 4 out of the 5 spots are pretty much locked up unless something crazy happens, or just Scoot and Sharpe are that good. Because the Underdog had a follow-up tweet that says 3 storylines to watch for the Blazers. The first one is 5th starter, Sharpe, Scooter, Grant. Yeah.
There's a pretty decent article. A lot of times the national media has no clue what's going on with the Portland Trail Blazers. But, I was muted when I said this, but I can't wait for Matisse Thybulle to start on opening day and it be none of those 3 guys.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
All in on defense. Like, could this organization think that Matisse Thybulle gives him the best chance to win if he's starting because that's the best defensive lineup in the league? I mean, I'm not being for real, but also, am I? I don't know.
And just for the record, they also had Blazers defense post All-Star break last season, 2nd in opposition turnovers, 3rd in steals per game, 4th in defensive rating, 4th in points off turnovers, and 4th in opposition 3-point field goal percentage. And then plus they added Jrue Holiday.
Yeah.
So that was one of their other 3 storylines, potential to be one of the NBA's best defenses if you follow that trend.
I mean, you could make the case that bringing in Jrue Holiday, trading Anthony Simons for it, makes it easier to start Scoot and Sharp and bring Holiday off the bench compared to like benching Anthony. But I just don't think it will play out that way. I think Sharp going into training camp is going to have to show a commitment to the defensive side of the ball. That was the big issue with him last year, was what he was taken out of the starting lineup for last season. So he's going to need to show some progress there. I know they said that he made some progress last year, but honestly, I feel like they were kind of overstating that just to kind of play things down. I think that the stuff that he struggled with before he got benched, he still struggled with after he got benched. I noticed a lot of the same stuff. So if they're trying to hang their hat on defense, which they should, they have the potential to be an elite defensive team. I think that's the one thing that could hold Shane Sharp back from starting if they feel like he's a weak enough link that teams are just going to target him, especially with Chauncey Billups and his, how much his defenses switch. If Sharp's not competitive enough to hold his own against bigger players, then that's an issue. Where Jrue, like, he is not somebody you want guarding guys that are 6'9", necessarily 6'8", 6'9", but he competes and he's smart and he's physical. So, that particular conversation doesn't bode well for Scoot starting either, and that's where I see a world where maybe it's Jeremy Grant to give them that switchability, to give them that length, and then that's where you see Scoot and Sharp off the bench. But you can't just throw away offense. If Sharp is giving you such a big offensive boost, then that outweighs the defensive liabilities. So I just wonder how much they're going to lean on the defensive side of the ball compared to everything else. If they are going to want to start the best defensive lineup, which is probably Jeremy Grant, or if they're going to want kind of a mix, which might be Scoot Henderson, or like the best offensive option that fits starter spot, which I think is Shane Sharp, at least in terms of like a go-to scorer.
Yeah. See, I kind of look at it like if you're starting Jrue, Tamani, Denny, and Donovan, like I almost feel like you can get away with your 5th starter being not very good. I mean, we saw Sharp was part of that defense. Anthony was part of that defense. We just talked about being 4th in defensive rating post All-Star break. So I feel like with how much they need offense, it might just be the case. Now, if he struggles shooting the ball, is only shooting 31% from 3, and Scoot and Jrue are both shooting better, or Grant, doesn't have the same poor shooting as last year, I mean, maybe you could argue that our offense is better with the spacing if Sharp's not going to hit that 3 ball. But I feel like you can still do a lot of things when you have those 4 quality defenders around you.
Yeah.
To get away with it a little bit.
It's just like, if he comes into training camp and it's still obvious that out of those 3 players, he's the worst, noticeably the worst 3-point shooting option and the worst defender, is that something that keeps him on the bench? I think it could be. Could be, because those are when you're talking about a 5th starter, it's kind of a weird conversation, because normally the 5th starter is like a role player. You have your stars, your offensive guys. Like the 5th starter is going to be the best guy at like knocking down some corner threes, playing some defense, role player stuff. Whereas the conversation for the 5th starter with this Blazer lineup is like, okay, they need offensive punch. Who's going to be the offensive player? Which is backwards from most teams. So that could bode in Shane Sharp's favor. But I could see them thinking that other guys give them a better chance to win because there'll be better 3-point shooting options, better defensive players with some juice off the dribble. It's not like Jeremy Grant can't put the ball on the floor at all as a scorer. It's not like Scoot Henderson's a point guard, quick, athletic, can get downhill, can pass, right? So brings some punch offensively as well. So I don't know if they're going to be viewing it the same as like Blazer fans, because Blazer fans were all enamored by his potential and like the stretches that he has, which he hasn't found consistency yet, but the stretches that he has where he can dominate as a scorer, finish really well around the rim, great athlete, like all this stuff. But in terms of like an NBA coaching staff looking at production and looking at what fifth starter gives them the best chance to win, Shane Sharp's just an interesting case because of those strengths, but then also due to the fact that he's the worst shooter and this team desperately needs shooting, and he's the worst defender, and the most important thing with this team seems to be defense, which is why they traded Anthony Simons for Jrue Holiday.
Yeah, so let me say, before I'm going to say what I'm going to say, I don't think this will be the case. I do believe still in Sharp's potential. I think he's the kind of guy, like I said earlier, that can get 20 in his sleep, and those guys do have some value. And I feel like he is going to fill that role a little better this year than he has, and hopefully, I mean, I don't know about his 3-point shot. Hopefully he's been working on it all off season and is locked in a little better. But so that's the one huge variable to me for him completely breaking out this season and just being kind of what he was in years past. But now that I've said that, if he is the odd man out and he is not good enough to beat out Scoot and Jrue, and it's because he still can't shoot the three and he's not playing good defense and all that kind of stuff, I feel like they got to move him because he's a restricted free agent potentially next offseason. He's the only one of the guards that will be up contract-wise next offseason. So if that's the case, if we're talking about it in terms of he's not good enough to beat out Scoot or Jrue for minutes, or like he's not ready to take that step, or he's not showing any more of the potential than he's shown already, I feel like that's going to be a tough conversation, because next year when we get Dame back, like why would we re-sign him this offseason if we have Dame, Jrue, and Scoot all playing well? And Sharp is still there. So like I said, I don't think that is going to be the scenario that plays out, but if it does, I think you have to strongly consider moving Sharp, especially before. I think you got to do it sooner rather than later, before teams realize that you're really down on him if you're not giving him a role in his fourth season that people think he's going to earn or whatever.
Yeah, I think in that scenario, though, I don't think other NBA teams are going to buy into the potential the same way that we view the potential as fans. Like I've always said, fan bases are always higher on their young players' potential than anybody else, right?
But we've seen this offseason, we've seen like how tricky restricted free agency can be. So like I don't know, it might not be worth that headache.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like if it comes down to that, or you trade him for a Norman Powell package because other teams think he's a more athletic. Well, I mean, Norm's a good shooter, but like you're talking about scoring guard that struggles defensively and efficiency is like okay, but not particularly good, then those players don't have a ton of value on the trade market. You know, like just look at Jalen Green wasn't somebody that was viewed as having a ton of trade value by any means, and right. He's athletic, can score the ball in bunches. When he's on, he looks super impressive. So I think there's a world where he plays well enough to be like a top flight sixth man, and they view him next year as continuing to be that and re-signing him to be that. I think I agree with you. If they feel like they can't agree to an extension, you don't want to just have him accept the qualifying offer and then go into year 5 with him having one more year until unrestricted free agency and he has a no trade clause. Is just not worth it. So they have to be confident they can agree to an extension, which is weird because I don't know if they're confident, if they know exactly what level he's going to be at next season or how they're going to view him at the end of next year. So he's like the guy where it could go, he could break out and be the best player on this roster, or he could be in a situation where his flaws, maybe they don't start him and then it's hard for him to get ahead because we all know he can score the ball, but if the team's playing well and he's coming off the bench, like how's he ever going to start? And then what's his value going to be in terms of an extension? And that's where there's so many questions to be answered this season, and that's one of them. Like, what exactly is Shaedon Sharpe for this team? Is he a top 2 scorer on this team next year? He should be, but I don't know. Is his defense legit? Like, can he just be solid on that end? Can he just be an okay 3-point shooter? It's not like we're asking for a whole lot. He has to reach those benchmarks. Like, he can't have another season where he's a 31% 3-point shooter. He can't have another season where we're having all these defensive questions in year 4, that a lot of which we had in year 1. Because to me, that's just showing a lack of progress on the finer areas of the game. And we know he can score the ball, and that's great. But if you bleed value in other areas, how much value do you really have towards winning actual basketball games? So he has to reach certain benchmarks this season, in my opinion, for him to kind of cement himself as a key part of this core. And those benchmarks aren't high. I think they're very achievable. So I'm not worried about him reaching these benchmarks, but if he doesn't, then we're going to have some tough conversations. He needs to be like a 34% three-point shooter. If that means he has to dial back his shot selection, then he has to dial back his shot selection. He needs to find a way to be efficient from there. Or not even efficient from there, just not completely inefficient from there. Like, he should not be below 30% for the majority of the season like he was last season. And then the defense, like, just don't leave it up to interpretation defensively. Like, there's so many questions about, man, how focused is he on that end? Like, his motor's inconsistent, and Chauncey benches him because of his effort. And don't allow people to have these thoughts, because effort's controllable, right? So those are the 2 important benchmarks for him to hit, and I think they're so freaking low that if he doesn't, it's a major issue.
Agreed. And I'm kind of worried. So let's just say that 6-man scenario plays out where he plays well in that role or whatever, and could be our 6-man going forward. I find it hard to believe he's going to accept that kind of contract, though. Like, it feels like a Quentin Grimes / Cam Thomas type situation where they're gonna want a lot more money than we'd be offering him in that situation.
And the thing is,
and then of course we get Dame back next year too.
Yeah, the thing is, he should be too good to just be a 6-man. Mm-hmm. Like, even if he does play well in that 6th-man role, I feel like that's a letdown, where maybe they just make that work going forward, but it's one of the lower outcome scenarios. We're talking about a guy who last season in 31 minutes a game averaged 18.5 points, 4.5 boards, almost 3 assists. Like, per 36, that's 21, 5, and 3. And he was an elite finisher around the rim, a very good mid-range shooter, and just needs to figure it out from 3. Talking about a guy that shot 36% from 3 his rookie season, then 33% last year, and then 31% this past season. So it's just gone down. It hasn't improved. So, yeah, like, maybe he looks good in that role, but that's a letdown. And it's just, that being the outcome is going to be disappointing if that's the case. but that might be a very legitimate possibility, especially with Dame coming in next season. So all eyes are going to be on Shaedon Sharpe. They need him to break out if they want to be a top 8 team next season in the West, in my opinion, because you can only go so far just having your defense carry your team in a loaded conference. So they're going to need guys that can put the ball in the bucket and take over games, and we've seen the flashes, but there's a lot of guys out there that never made the flashes consistent, and that's why Jalen Green wasn't sought after. If his flashes were consistent, he would also be probably a superstar, a Devin Booker level player, instead of just being the second guy to Devin Booker now. So hopefully Sharpe doesn't fall into that same trap. I think this is truly the year where he either, I say this for Chauncey with his coaching, I think this is the year for Sharpe to either truly break out, or I'm going to be a bit pessimistic in terms of that ever happening. And he's still super young, but at some point, even though you're young, it's like, okay, you're young. You should be making progress in these areas. So that's why those benchmarks, that's why I cannot iterate enough how important they are for him to show the improvement as a three-point shooter and as a defensive player.
Absolutely. And hopefully this is a conversation that we don't have to have at any point this season.
Yeah, I hope he comes out with some fire on the defensive end. I hope he's more consistent offensively. I hope he's a little more bought in mentally on both sides of the ball. It's just I think it's both a good and a bad thing that this is the conversation, because I feel like all this stuff is controllable and fixable. I think it's much easier to fix this than it is to learn how to jump 45 inches, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But that also makes it more frustrating if it doesn't improve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to him, man. He can go out there and earn himself a $30 million a year contract. He has a great opportunity to do that this season. He can earn generational wealth this season. I mean, he's already going to have, rookie contracts even in today's NBA are still paid pretty damn nicely. We're talking about multiple tens of millions. Right, but he could be making hundreds of millions over the course of a 5-year contract. He could be making $150 million over 5 years. $160 million over 5 years and actually deserve it. Unlike Jeremy Grant. Anyway. Just kidding. Jeremy Grant earned that contract. It's just, questionable. Questionable. MGJJ123 says, with Sharpe being the most naturally talented, I hope he can break out and never be traded. I hope so as well. Mount Hood says, definitely this is the year to really see playing at a high level consistently. He also says, like Ayton, regarding the frustrating, mental struggles. Yeah, I mean, Sharpe's not like Ayton, luckily, but that's what always drove me crazy with Ayton was his issues are so mental. So mental. But also with Ayton, I'm not sure he loves playing basketball. I feel like he does it because he's naturally gifted at it, and I can't speak for what's in the man's heart, so, but he doesn't seem like a guy that's loves the game like other players. I could be wrong. Shout Medina, member for 19 months, says, drop a like. Yeah, drop a like. We're at 35 likes. I don't ask for likes enough, so make sure you still hit that like button. Easiest way to support the channel. Marv says, and we can get back into this conversation, Eric, my problem is with all the effort problems from other players, why was Sharpe the only one benched because of it? I made this point during the season that it has the potential for being a productive thing for Shaedon Sharpe, where it only has the potential to be a complete distraction if it's DeAndre Ayton. That's the argument as to why, but I also don't think it sends a good message for it to be applied inconsistently. So I think that diminishes the chance that it's productive for Sharp. So it's very fair to question it, and I question it too. But if you bench Ayton for effort, like where you take him out of the starting lineup for a few games, it's just going to be a distraction. Like, you're better off literally buying him out on the spot, which they did, right? Because it was going to be a distraction if they wanted to start clinging ahead of him. So it worked out in the end. But, yeah, what other players... Were there any other players, in your opinion, Marv, whose effort was just as bad or worse than Shaedon Sharp's last year? Like effort lapses. Because there's times where Sharp's effort was there, but it was way too inconsistent. So what other players do you think should have been benched? And I'm not saying there's none. I just want to hear your thoughts. Marv says, doesn't that say something about Sharp's character if they think he could handle benching? I think a lot of young players can handle it and turn it into a productive thing. Like Scoot's that type of guy. Klingon would be that type of guy. Denny got benched last season and responded very well to it. I think Ayton is just different in that regard. Jeremy was inconsistent last year, both on defense and offense. Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of what you're getting with Jeremy Grant. I don't know if the effort from him was just as bad as Sharp's. I think he had his moments, but he's just not a physical player, so he's not gonna put a body on someone and rebound. Kind of been knowing that, like, it's been that way for years. Whereas with Shaedon Sharp, you're still hoping that you can develop him into being better in these areas. Where Jeremy Grant, he is what he is. So that's the argument for why not. But there's also just politics in a professional sports league. Where these guys are veterans, highly paid veterans on big contracts, and they get the benefit of the doubt, whereas a young player doesn't. And whether you think that's right or not, I'm not saying it's right, but that's just the reality a lot of times. So Marv, bringing up Tumani. Tumani made defensive mistakes at times, yes. I mean, because he was overhelping, yeah, but that wasn't an effort issue. So if we're talking about, like, Sharp got benched because of inconsistent effort, I don't think bringing up Tumani is a justifiable comparison, because his mistakes were often that he was trying too hard to guard his guy and help out others. And then Simons, I don't think the effort was as bad as some people acted. Like, he had his moments that really ticked me off last year, effort-wise. But I think a lot of times it's just he's physically overpowered. Any other players you want to do a little bit of a deep dive on, Eric, that we just did here with Sharp? Chat, you can let us know. You can maybe spark it with a question.
No, maybe talked about Jrue a little bit earlier in the stream, and then we've talked about the big men a couple streams ago, and I think we should say something for Thursday.
Okay, we can talk about Scoot on Thursday. Yeah. I don't think Tumani is going to be a long conversation.
Yeah.
I think, Scoot and Denny are going to be important. There was a comment earlier I wanted to respond to, and I remember talking about, like, who's the offense going to run through? Is it going to be Denny? Is it going to be Sharp? I think if the Blazers have a good enough half-court offense, it doesn't have to be the offense running through a particular person. I think it's going to be, flow, motion, making the right read, like giving what the defense gives you. And then, at times guys are going to create one-on-one, but that might be Jrue Holiday if he has a bad defender on him. That might be Sharp. That might be Scoot. That might be Denny. Maybe Tamani shows some growth there if teams are trying to hide bad defenders on him where – he gets a ball kicked out from three and gets run off the line, attacks closeouts, like that sort of thing. Maybe occasionally run a pick and roll if you're not playing against an aggressive defense and you have some bad defenders you're trying to target that they're putting on Tamani. Like, I think it's just going to be more nuanced than we've seen in the past, or hopefully it's more nuanced than we've seen in the past where, like, when we had Dame, it was Dame's going to run the offense. He's going to run a ton of pick and roll. He's going to ISO, get up a ton of shots, like spark the offense, pass the ball, like create for others, and everything starts and ends with him. And then when it doesn't start and end with him, then it starts and ends with CJ. And then last year there was a lot of offensive possessions that started and ended with Anthony Simons. And we kind of saw it trend that way as well. And at times, these offensive possessions, a lot of them start and end with Jeremy Grant, where he's just isolating off the dribble and taking a pull-up mid-range shot. You're going to have possessions like that, and I think Denny and Sharp will be two of the main guys in that regard, but I'm hoping it's less of that style of offense and more so playing off each other and more opportunistic based on the way the defenses are covering and running sets to get guys in spots to succeed. And the Blazers should have multiple spots they're trying to get multiple players into. With Shaedon Sharp, it should be a lot of pin downs, trying to either get him to curl to the rim if he's being trailed, or if the defender goes under the screen, he's popping to three, maybe shooting an open three, hopefully shooting those better. But that could also be a look for Scoot. That could also be a look for Denny. All right, so I view the offense as more of a democracy this year, if that makes sense. More of a committee, more of a team, because it is a team sport. So,
completely agree. I think that's one of the things. I mean, we know, like, if you're going to win a championship, you need to have the guy in addition to having, I think, a good team overall offense. But if you're just trying to make the playoffs, I think it's okay to have it kind of spread around a little bit, the responsibilities.
Yeah, if you don't have that guy, don't try and force guys that aren't that guy to try and be that guy.
Right.
Unless you think, maybe they rise to the occasion. But I think the guys that would rise to the occasion will naturally anyway. Because there's still going to be moments, right? You don't want to have Scoot isolating a ton if he's not a good ISO scorer yet, if he's not a guy yet, that type of guy yet. You want to put him in positions to succeed, and for maybe every offensive player on this roster, that could mean situations other than spamming isolation and pick and roll as if they're the guy.
Mm-hmm.
If we're doing that, we'll talk about it in post-game shows. Can't wait. First preseason game is 2.5 weeks from today. 2.5 weeks from today.
Let's go.
Hopefully, we're celebrating a Mariners ALDS win by that point in time, because that series will start October 4th. Eric, your Reds are in playoff position.
Oh, 6 games left. Can't jinx it.
I know. We both having the Reds and Mariners in the playoffs at the same time. When was the last time that happened?
Yeah, I don't think there was. Well, the Reds, they had that extended playoffs for COVID.
The Mariners didn't make the playoffs that year.
But the Mariners
Their
didn't make
drought
it that
kept
year.
going, even though they had more than half the teams in the league in the playoffs that year. When was the last time this happened? Did the Reds make it?
95?
Did they make it in 2001?
Maybe. I want to say 95.
No, they didn't. Yeah. Let's see.
Is 95 the year they made the ALCS with Griffey and stuff?
Yeah.
I want to say that was. I want to say the Reds made the playoffs that year. Because I think that.
1995. Yeah, the Reds did make the playoffs that year and lost in the NLCS. Got swept by the Atlanta Braves. Yep. I wasn't alive the last time both our baseball teams made the playoffs, so that's crazy. So yeah, hopefully for our sake. Man, I was so hyped with that diving catch, dude. Did you see that game? Like, did you see the way that game went? Did you box score watch?
Well, I saw the catch live. I tuned in for the ninth inning. Yeah.
Well, they were just up 6-0, like dominating the whole game. They put this reliever I don't really like, and he immediately he plunks a dude, gives up an infield sinker, gives up a grand slam, right? So it's like 6-0 and then 6-4. And I don't know if
I just see you falling off the deep end.
Well, it's
every
like
time something starts to...
Well, I'm so used to the Mariners letting me down. Like, they're the kings of the MLB, chat, if you don't pay attention to baseball. They've made one playoff series in the past 24 years. Okay? And they only had one home game that playoff run and did not score a run and lost 1-0 in 18 innings. 1-0 in 18 innings. So I've never seen them score a run at home in the playoffs in my life. Because I wasn't watching in 2001. I was 6 years old. I'm just used to this team constantly letting me down. And it's always the Astros. The Astros just always feel inevitable. It always feels like they're going to find a way to win the division, even if they're injured, depleted, and they just constantly own us. There was the game one of the AL Division Series, the second round in 2022, the 1 year I've seen the Mariners make the playoffs so far. The Mariners were up 7-3 going into the 8th inning against Houston at Houston. Gave up 2 runs in the 8th and then gave up a walk-off 3-run homer to Yordan Alvarez to lose that game. And then they lost game 2 against Houston, and basically this team has just tortured us for a decade. Eric, do you remember that playoff game, that walk-off that I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I was getting those flashbacks, bro. I was getting those flashbacks because the Mariners were up 6-0, dominating the game. They give up a grand slam in the 7th inning. They give up base runners in the 8th, get out of it. And then they go to the 9th, and they're up 6-4, so they're up 2 runs, just like they were in the ALDS Game 1 3 years ago. And they put a runner on first and second. So 2 runners aboard. Here comes Correa. Good hitter. Winning run to the plate. And I'm just sitting there thinking, man, not another walk-off 3-run homer in, the biggest regular season game that I've maybe ever seen. So, backstory, if you don't follow baseball, this series, the Mariners and Astros were tied for the division. And winning the division is huge in baseball. It's not like NBA. They were tied for the division. And they had a 3-game series, 3 games in a row. So basically, whoever won this 3-game series would win the tiebreaker, as well as be up, a game if they split it 2-1. So these games were huge just because they're against each other. So they're huge for the standings in that regard. But it was also to determine the tiebreaker, which makes it even bigger. Mariners won game 1, and then game 2. This is the game I'm talking about, where sitting there up 6-0, like, oh my goodness, we might finally win the first division in my life that I've seen them win. They haven't won a division since 2001. Never seen it happen. They always let me down. It's always Houston. It's always some crazy comeback. So I was melting down on Saturday. Melting down, man. It was just like everything coming to a head. Like, this is how it always goes. They were up 6-0, give up a grand slam at 6-4. They get 2 runners on bottom of the 9th. one out, and then out of nowhere, diving catch, Victor Robles doubles up the guy in second because for some reason he's running home and they win the game, and it was an amazing catch. Yeah, that was like, Eric, that was like all the pain getting overcome just with this flash of Victor Robles laying out for a game-winning catch. Like, I don't know how to explain it any better than that. Like, it was overcoming so much freaking pain.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't catch that, it either gets knocked away or it goes, because I don't think the other outfielder's getting it.
Yeah.
With him diving in front of him, so that might have been an inside the park homer if he doesn't catch that. So, yeah. So that was just crazy.
And then they swept them. So after the series, they went from tied, not knowing the tiebreaker, to up 3 games and having the tiebreaker. So they can lose 3 more games in the final 6, and they'll be tied. The Mariners will still win the division. So for all intents and purposes, they've won the division. They're now playing the worst team in the league for 3 games. Shout out to the Rockies. So first time I've ever seen it. So that's super cool. But yeah, that's why it felt like a Dame Series winner, you know, like against Houston. The Blazers hadn't won in 14 years, right? So, like, that was cool. You know, it's just like overcoming futility feels really, really good. Whereas if you're used to a team succeeding your whole life, you don't know what that feels like to overcome futility. Hopefully we'll get that feeling soon with the Portland Trail Blazers. But, yeah, like, it's different.
What is it? The top 2 teams get buys or just one?
The top 2.
Because they're a game behind the Yankees too. So
it's the top 2 division winners. The division winners get
so they're right now they're in the spot.
Yeah. So right now, according to PlayoffStatus.com, they have a 98% chance of getting a bye. Because the division winners get the first, second, and third seeds, and the first and second seed gets the bye. So the Blue Jays are better than the Yankees, so they're the 1 seed right now. But so the Tigers collapsing. I think they're like 1-8 in their last 9 games. There's something like 10 days ago they had a 9.5 game lead on Cleveland for the division, and then 10 days later they only had a single game lead, 1 game lead. They were up 15.5 games in July.
Yeah, July 31st, I think it was 15.
Yeah, which is just an insane, absolutely insane thing. But see, this is where like the format of the way the playoffs are set up in baseball makes the regular season like so meaningful. You know what I mean? Like,
if it's close, sometimes some years it's not close.
Yeah, but it's just, you know, it's so meaningful. Whereas the NBA, it's just like, oh, if you get the top 8, you know, everybody's in the first round. There's no buys. Like, winning your division doesn't mean anything. It's just like, just get in the top 8. If you're second or fourth, doesn't really matter. If you're trying to win a championship, you're gonna have to play the best team at some point, right? So, you know, for Indiana, they were the 4th seed. They make that run. Like, cool. They beat the Cavs. You know, that's where I think and I talked about this recently, if the NBA is going to make the regular season more important, they would probably need to switch off their playoff format, but that would mean less playoff games and less revenue, at least in their minds. So I think the cool thing with baseball, though, is like the standings are all relatively close. Like the best team in the AL is 90 and 66, whereas if an NBA team played that many games, the best team in the NBA would be like 130 and 26. You know what I mean? Like the Thunder. Like there's a lot more gaps in terms of like wins and losses and record, whereas baseball is a lot more even, so every game ends up mattering at the end of the year more often than not. Whereas the NBA, it's just kind of like, whatever. So, yeah, that's my baseball spiel. That's my baseball spiel. But I'm planning to go to Game 1 of the ALDS.
Nice.
I want to see their first run at home in the playoffs of my lifetime, or at least since I started watching. I want to see that in person. So they better not get shut out in game 1 of the ALDS, dude. That would be awful. That'd be awful.
I forgot. Maybe someone in chat knows what this was, but it was something like, so in the last 24 years or something, someone in chat could probably tell me. There's 3 teams in the 4 major sports that haven't won a home game in like 20 some years in the playoffs, and the Reds are one of them, and the Kraken are one of them, just because they're so new.
Yeah.
And then there's one football team. Do you know what team that is?
Hasn't won a home game in 20 years?
It's something like that. Yeah, it's like a crazy amount of time. Yeah.
Who's that?
The Browns.
The Browns. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Freaking Browns, man.
That's like it. So.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I'm super excited. When ALDS schedule 2025, do they play the day of the first preseason game? Nope, the NLDS first preseason game is, when are the preseason games? The 9th, the 11th, the 16th, and 18th?
Something like that. I don't remember the exact dates.
Chat, am I right? Is that the Blazers preseason schedule? I should know off the top of my head. Could Blazers build new stadium in Jansen Beach? Definitely not. Definitely not. The traffic would be. Imagine a bridge lift. It's 6 p.m. an hour before a Blazer game in Jansen Beach. Or, well, I guess it would clear in time, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, they definitely have to fix that bridge before it happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't have the roads for that.
Yeah, just like area-wise, if you can make it work, it like that area is not. I mean, I know there's some stores there, but that's kind of gone downhill in terms of like people going there to shop and stuff. So
yeah, it's not a place that you go to hang out. It's a place you go to shop. That's it. I feel like that doesn't really fit what they'd want, what they'd be going for.
I mean, I'm assuming they just clear out all those jobs, which wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, true. Blazers preseason schedule.
They're way back in the day, before my time even, there used to be an amusement park there.
Oh, they play the 8th. In the 10th. In the 14th and the 16th. The 8th is ALDS Game 4. Well, hopefully they don't need a Game 4. Hopefully they sweep in 3 games. And then the 10th would be ALDS Game 5. This might mess with my preseason coverage, man, because, you know, I might just be starting the streams for Eric over here.
I got it, yeah.
Because the 14th and the 16th. The 14th is NLCS, that's it. The 16th would be NLCS and ALCS. And then the World Series, since we're going all the way. Blazers played 22nd, 24th, 26th, 27th. Yeah, game 2, 3, and 4 is on the same nights as game 1, 2, and 3 of the World Series. Well, yeah, we'll see. If we get there, we get there. If we make a World Series, we'll have to figure some things out here. Because I ain't missing it. It's never happened before. Can't miss history. Anyway, speaking of history, we finally won a parlay. Shout out to Sleeper. This is the parlay we won. I didn't replace the screenshot with the winning entry, but there's a $15 parlay to win $86 with a 30% boost. Eric, you remember this parlay?
Yeah.
The Rome,
Switched it to.
Yeah, the Rome, Jahmyr Gibbs anytime TD play. We had Jahmyr Gibbs get a touchdown off a pitch from Amon-Ra St. Brown today. We had Rome get a I think it was like a 30-yard TD pass right at the start of his game.
It was a flea flicker, wasn't it?
No, the flea flicker was to Luther Burden.
Okay.
Yeah, it was to Burden. He gets all the gadget plays there.
So, Swift had the worst pass back to the quarterback I've ever seen. Why did he throw it so high?
I know, man. It was cool because it worked.
It took forever to
get back. I mean, he was starting to get tackled, basically, so maybe that's why. But, yeah, like, they blow up the backfield, and he just lobs this ball back, and somehow it gets to him. Yeah, that was a wild play. But, see, this is why I like the boost. And, see, I spent a little bit more because we got the 30% boost so that it would boost me like $30 or so. This was a easy parlay win. Like that's literally all the money back that I've spent on these parlays. I've had some tough beats so far, but Rome, who's been dominant this year, scored a touchdown in every game, and then Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, he's in a top 3 offense in the NFL, in my opinion. You know, top 4 maybe. Detroit puts up points on the board like crazy. So this to me was a pretty simple parlay. Only needed 2 things. $15 into $86. This is what you can get with Sleeper. Now's the perfect time to download the Sleeper app. Use the link in the description below to do so. Use promo code Uprise. It will give you 100% match up to $100. With the NBA season right around the corner and the NFL season in full swing, now is your time to take advantage of that offer, because just look at this was a simple, smart parlay. You know, it was a simple parlay for me. Just think about it with NBA. Since we all know the NBA inside and out. Since we're all NBA nerds here. Now's the time to prepare. Use promo code Uprise. Shout out Sleeper for sponsoring the channel. And getting on the action in time for the NBA season. Would you guys drop Niners D in fantasy? No, I would not. Niners D has been very good this year. I know they lost Bosa, but I wouldn't drop them. I mean, it depends on matchups. If you're playing matchups, then maybe it's not an ideal matchup. So maybe you stream defenses and you drop them. But if you're not planning on doing that, then I would just hang on to them. They have the easiest schedule in the league, so.
Well, thanks everyone for watching. Appreciate you all.
Yeah, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We'll be live again on Thursday, and then Monday I plan on streaming Media Day live. So if you guys want to hang out with me on Monday, Eric unfortunately will be working, but we can react to Media Day live. That's something we've never done before. I think that would be a cool thing to do because the Blazers stream it on their website. So we'll just watch it together and react to it, and you know, I'll get Eric's thoughts on the quotes and everything later that night. But that's my plan for Monday. That's my plan for Monday.
Sweet.
I worked the Sunday and Monday of Labor Day, so I deserve a 3-day weekend. I haven't had one in quite some time, so I think that's the plan for next Monday is a Media Day stream, which would be fun, and yeah, hopefully you can join for that. If not, we'll keep doing our Monday, Thursday night streams all the way up until the last one will be October 6th. So after this one, we have 4 left, and then preseason post-game shows starting Wednesday, October 8th. And then our schedule will change. So anyway, leave a like on the way out of here. Easiest way to support the channel. We appreciate it. And subscribe if you haven't already. And we are out of here. Shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the stream. And we'll catch you on Thursday. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers!